Have you ever felt like someone was watching you? It's a strange sensation, isn't it? That prickling at the back of your neck, the feeling that eyes are on you, even when you can't see anyone. It's unsettling to say the least. This is what happened to me at the grocery store. An ordinary Tuesday evening, or so I thought. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot as I made my way inside. The automatic doors slid open with a soft whoosh, welcoming me into the brightly lit interior. I needed a few things for dinner. Just a quick trip, in and out. I grabbed a basket from the stack near the entrance, the plastic handle cool and familiar in my hand. The fluorescent lights hummed above, a constant, almost comforting background noise. But tonight there was something different about the store. The lights seemed to flicker more than usual, casting eerie shadows that danced along the aisles. I grabbed a basket and began navigating the aisles. The store was unusually quiet, the usual hustle and bustle replaced by an almost oppressive silence. My footsteps echoed softly as I walked, the sound amplified in the stillness. The air smelled faintly of bleach and overripe bananas. It was a strange combination, one that made my nose wrinkle slightly. I tried to ignore it, focusing instead on the task at hand. I scanned the shelves for pasta sauce. There were so many options, each one promising a different flavor experience. I reached for a jar, my fingers brushing against the cool glass. It was then that I first noticed her. A movement out of the corner of my eye, just a flicker, but enough to catch my attention. I turned my head, my heart skipping a beat. A woman standing alone in the next aisle. She was just standing there, not moving, not shopping, just watching. It was unnerving, to say the least. She seemed ordinary enough, dressed in a faded blue coat, but there was something about her, something that set her apart from the other shoppers. Maybe it was the way she stood so still, or the way her eyes seemed to bore into me. But something about the way she stared sent a chill down my spine. Her gaze was intense, almost predatory. I felt like a deer caught in the headlights, unable to move, unable to look away. I tried to shake off the feeling. It was just my imagination, I told myself. Just a trick of the light. Or maybe I was just tired. I had been working long hours lately, after all. I told myself it was just my imagination. There was no reason to be scared. No reason to feel uneasy. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I continued shopping, trying to focus on my shopping list. There were still a few items I needed to pick up, and I didn't want to forget anything. I moved down the aisle, my eyes scanning the shelves, but I couldn't ignore the nagging feeling. It was like a weight on my shoulders, pressing down, making it hard to breathe. I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see her standing there. The feeling that someone was watching my every move. It was irrational, I knew that. But it was there, gnawing at the edges of my mind, refusing to be ignored. I quickened my pace, eager to finish my shopping and get out of there. I glanced back at the woman. She hadn't moved. She stood there, almost like a statue, amidst the bustling crowd of the grocery store. The clatter of shopping carts and the murmur of conversations seemed to fade into the background as my focus remained on her. She was still standing in the same spot, her gaze fixed on me. It was as if time had stopped for her, and her only purpose was to watch me. The intensity of her stare was unnerving, making me feel exposed and vulnerable. Her eyes were cold and calculating. They seemed to pierce through me, as if she could see right into my soul. There was no warmth, no hint of friendliness in those eyes, just a chilling, analytical gaze that made my skin crawl, like she was analyzing my every move, every step I took, every item I picked up. It felt like she was scrutinizing it all. Her presence was overwhelming, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was judging me for reasons unknown. A shiver ran down my spine. It was a primal reaction, a deep-seated instinct warning me of danger. My body was reacting to her presence in a way I couldn't control, and it terrified me. I quickly turned away, my heart pounding in my chest. The sound of my heartbeat was deafening in my ears, drowning out the ambient noise of the store. I needed to get away from her, to put some distance between us. I tried to rationalize my fear. Maybe I was overreacting, maybe she was just a harmless shopper who happened to be looking in my direction. But the logical part of my brain was losing the battle against the fear that gripped me. Maybe she was just lost in thought. People often zone out in public places, their minds wandering far from their surroundings. Perhaps she was one of those people, lost in her own world, unaware of the effect she was having on me. Maybe she hadn't even noticed me. It was possible that her gaze was unfocused, that she was staring through me rather than at me. But deep down I knew better. There was an intensity in her eyes that couldn't be ignored. But deep down I knew better. There was a certainty in her stare that left no room for doubt. She was aware of me, and she was watching me with a purpose. The realization sent a fresh wave of fear through me. There was something strange about this woman. Her presence was unsettling, almost otherworldly. She didn't belong here in this mundane setting of a grocery store. She was an anomaly, a disruption in the normal flow of life. I decided to change my route. I needed to get away from her, to find a place where I could feel safe. The dairy aisle was just a few steps away, and I hoped it would provide some refuge from her unsettling gaze. I veered away from her, heading towards the dairy aisle. My steps were hurried, almost frantic as I tried to put as much distance between us as possible. The cold air from the refrigerated section was a welcome relief, a stark contrast to the heat of my fear. As I reached for a carton of milk, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A flash of blue. The woman had moved. She was no longer in her original spot, and the realization made my heart skip a beat. She was now at the end of the dairy aisle, still watching me. Her gaze was as intense as ever, and the distance between us did nothing to lessen its impact. I felt trapped, like a prey being stalked by a predator. The grocery store, once a place of routine and normalcy, had become a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. Panic surged through me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in danger. I quickly grabbed my basket and made my way towards the checkout. I could feel her eyes on my back, following me. As I waited in line, I tried to keep my cool. I pretended to be engrossed in my phone, but my heart was racing. I could sense her getting closer. The air seemed to crackle with an unseen energy. My breath caught in my throat. "You shouldn't have come here!" A voice rasped behind me. I froze. It was her. Her voice was low and menacing, sending chills down my spine. I didn't dare turn around. My blood ran cold. "You know what you did," she whispered, her breath hot on my neck. I clutched my basket, my knuckles turning white. The cashier, oblivious, droned, "Next, please." Terror lent me speed. I threw some cash on the counter, ignoring the cashier's confused shouts. I didn't look back. I just ran. Section 5. Relentless Pursuit. I sprinted through the aisles, my heart pounding in my ears. I could hear the woman's footsteps behind me, slow and deliberate. She was toying with me. My breath hitched in my chest. I dodged shoppers, my eyes frantically searching for the exit. The fluorescent lights blurred above me. The woman's laughter echoed through the aisles, sending shivers down my spine. She was enjoying this. The automatic doors slid open, a beacon of hope. I burst into the night air, gasping for breath. I risked a glance back. She was standing in the doorway, framed by the light, a silhouette of menace. Section 6. A desperate escape. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. My hands trembled as I fumbled with my keys. I could see her approaching, a dark figure in the night. I slammed the car door shut and locked it just as she reached me. Her face, contorted with rage, was pressed against the window. Her eyes blazed with an unholy fire. I started the engine, my foot heavy on the gas pedal. I reversed out of the parking lot, tires screeching. I didn't feel safe until I was inside my apartment, the door bolted behind me. The city outside felt like a distant, chaotic world, but in here, I was supposed to be safe. Yet tonight was different. The door bolted behind me with a sense of finality, as if I was locking out more than just the physical world. I leaned against the wall, my chest heaving. What had just happened? Who was that woman? My mind raced, replaying the encounter over and over. Her eyes, her voice, the way she seemed to know me. I tried to convince myself it was just a random encounter, a crazy person. But the way she looked at me, it felt personal. Like she knew something about me that even I didn't. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. What if she wasn't crazy? What if she really did know something? Her words echoed in my mind. "You know what you did?" What did she mean? I had never seen her before in my life. Or at least I thought I hadn't. I had never seen her before in my life. Or had I? My memory felt unreliable, like a foggy mirror. The silence of my apartment was deafening. It was supposed to be my sanctuary, but now it felt like a prison. I decided to try and forget about the encounter. Maybe a distraction would help. I made myself a cup of tea and turned on the TV, hoping the familiar sounds and images would drown out my thoughts. But I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. Every creak of the apartment, every shadow seemed to hold a threat. It was like she had infected me with her madness. Her words, her presence, they lingered in my mind, refusing to let go. I felt like I was being watched, even though I was alone. The walls seemed to close in and the air felt thick with tension. I knew I had to do something, but what? The night stretched on and sleep felt like a distant dream. I was home, but I was not alone. Later that night I noticed something strange. A piece of paper had been slipped under my door. A single sentence was scrawled on it in a shaky hand. "We're watching you." My blood ran cold. It was her. I checked the peephole. No one there. But I knew the truth. I was being watched. The following days were a blur of paranoia. Every shadow seemed to hold her lurking presence. Every creak of the floorboard sent shivers down my spine. Sleep offered no escape, haunted by nightmares of her piercing gaze. I tried to convince myself it was just a prank. A cruel joke by someone who knew how to push my buttons. But the fear was always there, a knot in my stomach that refused to loosen. The world outside seemed menacing, every stranger a potential threat. The grocery store, once a mundane necessity, was now a place of terror. I couldn't escape the memory of her. Then, one evening, it happened. I was home alone, reading a book, trying to distract myself. A sudden knock on the door made me jump. My heart pounded in my chest. I cautiously approached the door, my hand hovering over the peephole. What I saw sent a wave of terror crashing over me. It was her. She was back, and this time I wasn't sure I would escape.